Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm revealing 3 responses for a husband who's never wrong. My guest Leah's husband had no interest in sex, and they were sleeping in separate beds. He was easily annoyed with her and the kids and said hurtful things. He said they were jokes, but they weren't very funny. And then she changed it up. And now he's reaching out to hold her hand and telling her she's beautiful. Her marriage feels so much better. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. The Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award winner is about what happens to your marriage when you have children. And I have it on good authority that it's completely wrong. All of that's coming up. But first, I'm going to reveal 3 responses for a husband who's never wrong. If your husband makes you feel bad about yourself, it's so hurtful. But then if he never apologizes or admits he did wrong, that's even worse. That's not right, and it's not okay either. You shouldn't have to be treated like you don't matter. If he then turns everything around on you and acts like it's all your fault, it can really make your head spin. That's enough to make anyone feel hopeless, especially if you're doing all the work to try to make things better, but he makes no effort to change, like he's God's gift to the universe, just perfect, exactly as he is. And without 2 people to tango, how is anything ever going to get better, right? No matter how hopeless things seem right now, though, there's good news. You can get the respect you deserve. Here are 3 essential hacks to get him to own his mistakes, and there's no begging required. Number 1, bring down his defenses. Kristen's husband went off the rails, complaining about her messy car and criticizing her for letting their children trash it. And she was tempted to defend herself and just rail right back. Don't you think I want a clean car too? Instead, she responded with just one word, ouch. No, seriously, her husband said, now criticizing her vulnerability too. Ouch too, she replied, holding up 2 fingers cutely. This not only took vulnerability, but also a lot of courage because her husband had made it clear he didn't like this whole ouch thing. But to Kristen's amazement, intimacy was restored immediately. He softened and he let out a little laugh. And then he proceeded to have a talk with the kids and clean the car himself. Even beneath his supposed criticism, it was clear how important it was to him that his wife get to drive the nice, clean car he bought her. That was a heart message that she maybe never would have heard had she RSVP'd yes to the argument she was invited to. If you get an invitation to a fight, how would the dynamic change if you expressed your hurt with a simple ouch and maybe left the room? Showing up so dignified and respectful yourself and giving him the space to see that he has just hurt the woman he loves without him being defensive, that's a powerful combination to inspire him to see his part. Number 2, call a truce in the blame game. Maintaining your dignity and respect is easier said than done when he knows exactly how to push your buttons, especially when you're unfairly blamed for something and he refuses to take any responsibility. I figured I could remedy that by pointing out the error of my husband's ways. But somehow that never made him want to be the better man that I was hoping he would become. My criticism was clearly not inspiring, which makes sense because criticism doesn't motivate me to change either. I'm more inclined to just pull up the drawbridge and fortify the armaments. I mean, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Well, if you're anything like I was, you'd like to be both. I want to be right and happy. I was all about keeping score and figuring out who was at fault, especially during a heated argument. I couldn't resist getting out my scorecard and pointing out who had left the dishes unwashed and who had forgotten to pay the bills. But the problem with my scorecard was that it meant there would be a winner and a loser. And I was convinced he was the loser, but somehow I kept losing out on the peace and the connection and the passion that I was craving. So much for my game plan. Tamara knew she also needed a new game plan when her man left her. And as devastated as she was, she also saw her part in the breakdown. And as unfair as it seemed to her, she realized she had some cleaning up to do. So she decided to experiment with the phrase, I apologize for being disrespectful when I, filling in the blank with ways that she had criticized or controlled or dismissed or demeaned him. And restoring that respect, it pumped oxygen back into her dying relationship. And he started helping her with whatever she needed around the house and serving her tea, opening up to her, complimenting her, rubbing lotion on her back, and giggling and flirting with her. Even when they had a conflict about the lawyer and he broke his plans to come over, accusing her of refusing to sign even though she had agreed to, he came over after all. Tamara somehow managed to stay respectful even when he flew into a rage at not being able to print the agreement, and then he left in a huff. So she went for a walk to clear her head. And she was so touched when he then texted her a long apology. An apology. She planned to respond when she got home, but he couldn't wait. 30 minutes later, he called her. And that alone was outside the norm. But what really blew her mind came next. He apologized for blaming her. And he said, I want to be respectful. He had never said that before. So if you're ready for mutual respect and accountability, why not think big picture? Instead of dissecting whose fault it is, how would things change if you focused on just your side of the street, cleaning that up? Even if that meant apologizing for only a small comment you made that contributed to the melee. Number 3, rewrite your story. If your husband makes you feel bad about yourself or treats you like you don't matter, I bet you could give me a whole list of evidence for that right now, couldn't you? I mean, for me, the evidence seemed overwhelming. Problem was, when I went around saying things like, he treats me like I don't matter, that was all I saw. I found out the hard way what a powerful manifester I was. What I focused on increased. I realized that no one always shows up in any particular way 100% of the time. It's not possible. So I did an experiment and I flipped my complaint into the experience I wanted to have. When I flipped my spouse-fulfilling prophecy, he's a loser pants when it comes to money, and started calling my husband Mr. Moneybags, for example, he started his own business and he became more successful than he had ever been. And that old spouse-fulfilling prophecy about the loser pants, that seems like a distant memory compared to how successful he is now. What story are you repeating to yourself and also to your man? Is your story unwittingly magnifying the problem like mine was? What if you tried on a new spouse-fulfilling prophecy and started gathering some new evidence that it's true? I want to warn you, though, you better be prepared to find out what a powerful manifester you are. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest Leah's husband had no interest in sex, and they were sleeping in separate beds. He was easily annoyed with her and the kids and said hurtful things, and they said they were jokes. Not so funny, though. But now he's reaching out to hold her hand, telling her she's beautiful and her marriage feels so much better. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. Leah, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. And thank you for being here and telling your story.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so new to this all the skills. Like I'm very new, only like 3 weeks in.
Wow. Well, tell us what was going wrong in your marriage.
Well, I mean, I'll take you back to the beginning. I mean, we've been married. We'll be married 20 years this year. So we got married in 2002, and my husband was always a hard worker. I think what drew me to him was his sense of humor, and he had this great smile. I always laughed around him. He always made me feel good, and I loved that about him. And so he always was so generous, and he gave me gifts and like jewelry, and was just always so like, oh, let's do takeouts. You don't have to make dinner. And he was just so like just giving that way. And I think things changed for us. We ended up having 2 children. We have a daughter and a son. And so we were married in 2002. 2009, my son was diagnosed with a aggressive muscle disease. And about a month after that diagnosis, I was having a hard time. And my mother-in-law was watching the kids for me. And my daughter ingested a peanut butter icing on a cake. Now, she wasn't allergic at that point. She was just very young. And at that age, and that many years ago, you just didn't give kids peanut butter. So she went into anaphylaxis, and she had a ride to the ER. So our life kind of changed like dramatically in 2009 with the needs of both of our children. Our son, his condition, of course, was something that needed a lot of care. And my daughter, we always had to have concerns about, making sure she never got around peanut butter and all of that. So we had 2 challenges. And I think some of my controlling and things, I think because the control over a lot of things was taken out of my hands, I started trying to control everything to have a sense of safety.
Sure. Yeah, it's scary. Scary when both your kids' their health feels like it's threatened. You want to control something. Absolutely.
But my husband was so wonderful through all of that, though. Like he was just, especially when my son was diagnosed, I was like, if you're going to leave me now. Like can you handle this? Can you do this? And he's like, oh my God, I'm not going anywhere. But that was my first thought, that someone wouldn't want to stick around. And no, he stayed right there by my side and was fantastic. And honestly, so since about 2009, I think we've been kind of struggling with sleep. I feel like my husband started to gain a little bit of weight, and then he started to snore, and then I was waking up, and then my son wasn't sleeping well, and we were worried about him. And so all of this started happening. We ended up sleeping in separate beds, and he always looked really comfortable in the other bed. I was always so mad at him. He's in there as comfortable as could be. And here I am being kicked, laying with my son. But it seemed like he never wanted to come back to sleep in the same bed with me again, And then his jokes he started veiling some things, like when he would be frustrated with something about something I would say, he'd kind of veil it in like a joke. And because he's just not very as forthright as I am, he kind of tries to kind of not indirectly say what he's concerned about. So he started veiling things in jokes and started hurting my feelings. He started like correcting me in front of my family. We were driving down the street and I hit a pothole, and he had to roll his eyes and get annoyed. Like it just seemed like everything I did got on his nerves. He is a wonderful man, but he works very hard. He has a full-time job. He also works with his dad. They have their own business. So I just felt like he was always working and was never kind of like home, I felt like that was kind of his outlet, I think, to work on his own depression. He would just kind of throw himself into his work. So, sleeping in separate beds is not a great thing. And I think what happened, things were kind of going wrong for a while, for many years, and I thought this is just the way it's going to be. I didn't want a divorce. I didn't want to go with anyone else. And I don't think he did either. I just think we just kind of felt like this is just the way life is going to be, and we're just going to struggle. And so it was, I think it was March 17th. So that was only about 3 weeks ago. I was talking to my husband. I was trying to tell him something. I was trying to tell him a story. And he was looking, so he has his phone out and he's looking at it. And he's like, kind of wants to listen to me, kind of doesn't. He's kind of looking at his phone. And I'm trying to get this story out. So I'm feeling uncomfortable and I'm tripping over my words and it's taking longer and he's getting confused in what I'm saying. And finally he just looks at me and says, you are awful at telling stories. And it was just that one simple thing. I think it was a buildup of a lot of comments like that. And instead of yelling or trying to defend myself saying, well, you're not listening to me, I just burst into tears. I just started to cry. And he looked at me and was like, no. No, he didn't say he was sorry. I almost said that. He didn't say he was sorry. He just said, no, tell me the story. Like, don't be upset. Don't be upset. And I had said, I can't. Now, I didn't know any of your skills. So there I showed a little bit of vulnerability.
Yes.
I can't. I'm embarrassed. And I left. And I just went out of the room and I just cried and cried. So when I came out later, he met me in the kitchen and he looked at me and just hugged me and kissed me. But all I kept thinking was, why can't you just say you're sorry? Why can't you just say, I didn't mean what I said? So that's so he and I were really cool to each other the rest of that day. And I couldn't sleep that night. I was just awake. And so I'm in the middle of the night, I'm Googling, why won't my husband say he's sorry to me? And I ended up finding, here it is. So I Googled, why doesn't my husband apologize to me? And I found an article by you, My Husband Never Apologizes. And I think the biggest takeaway I had is said, what are confident people more likely to do than those who feel insecure? And that would be apologize. So they're saying that if someone is not insecure, they're not comfortable saying they're sorry. So basically it said it's not easy for anybody and it takes some self-confidence to muster the humility. The more your husband feels respected, the more likely he is to feel that confidence. And that kind of hit me right there. And I thought, well, how did he say he was sorry? He kind of said he was sorry by trying to hug me and kiss me. I think I started to learn and pay attention. I think he shows me his sorry through action rather than words. And I'm like, okay. So and then I ended up taking the day off work. I spent the whole day, I just took care of myself. I got the kids ready. He was working early that morning. He didn't even say goodbye that morning. I sent the kids out to school and I just started reading. And, okay, I'm going to have an open mind and I'm going to listen to a different point of view. And that's where it started. And I decided before he got home from work, it was later in the day, I thought, okay, I'm going to apologize. I don't know what to apologize for. I'm just going to apologize for any type of disrespect I may have given him. And I think reading your materials, I learned that respect isn't like your husband is above you and you're below him, like an authority figure. Respect is more that we're on an even playing field. And the two of us we've gotten married and we've had children and we've built this life, and giving him the respect that we both deserve for sticking together and all the things we've struggled with. And so I thought, gosh, how many times have I rolled my eyes at him? How many times have I told him that, why did you do that? Or I didn't like that. And I just felt so sad for all the hurtful things I may have done to him. So as much as I was hurting, I imagined he probably was feeling very similar. So I had sent him a text. I said, I just want to apologize for any kind of disrespect I've given you over just taking it on myself. Nothing about him, just me. Or any disrespect I've thrown your way or any thoughtless comments. I said, I feel so sad and I don't like myself right now because I feel like I've hurt you in so many ways. And just sent it. And he responded back like almost immediately. He said, "What's not to like? You are a strong, beautiful wife and mom."
Oh,
yeah. So I was like, can these kinds of skills really make a difference? And I saw a change in him like immediately. It was almost like he was waiting for me to come back. He was waiting for the woman he married to kind of eventually come back. Like, I think he's always understood that I've struggled too with depression and I'm also a carrier for the disease my son has, and I didn't know at the time. And I carry a lot of blame and guilt because of that. And I think he's always given me space to kind of manage and deal with the big feelings I've had. But I thought, gosh, there's been so much hurt and so much misunderstanding for the last 10 years in our marriage. Like, it really changed. And I thought that was like the first step in the right direction.
Right.
So I can't believe a simple Google search led me to these skills that I never had heard about. Like, and this seems easy, not easy, but simple,
Yeah. Well, and I love you start out Googling, why does my husband never apologize or something like that? And then the result was you ended up apologizing, right? So that's quite the opposite of where you started. That was a pretty fast journey to you becoming very accountable and humble and willing to make the first move to be the one who apologized. So I think that's really awesome. So, and it sounds like he responded beautifully with that text. Yeah. So you really felt like, hey, these skills are working.
Yeah. I thought, okay, can I do this? Like, all right, I'll give this a try. And I downloaded your book immediately too, because I have Audible. So I downloaded an Audible because I didn't want to wait for the book to come in. I wanted to read as much as I can. And, just to think that like 19 years together, like we could start to repair things just with a little bit of vulnerability and like courage to take the first step. I think that could be hard to do, but I think I just thought I'm going to just put my trust in him and my faith in him that, he asked me to marry him and we built this life together. And I know he's not happy. He has on a couple occasions that said maybe we need to speak to a marriage counselor. And I'm kind of glad we didn't. I've gone to counseling myself, and it's just, I don't know. I kind of didn't really, it wasn't helping me a great deal. And then I thought, I don't want to be pointing fingers and blaming. That's not necessarily how we, fix things. I think if you can be accountable for yourself and your own actions, because it really is two people. It's two people. We're both kind of in this, not making the right decisions, not reacting the way we should. And I thought counseling could give us better communication. But I feel like these skills have helped me build some better communication. Like, the more I listen and the less I talk, I feel like the more he talks to me. And, I was always trying to fill the silence, and I was always trying to interfere in like my husband's relationship with the kids. Like, he'd have an argument with my son, and I always felt I had to save it or I had to fix what was happening. And like that whole understanding of staying on your own paper, like staying focused on your own things and not having to get myself involved in everything happening in the house. I think it just took a huge weight off of my shoulder. I thought, wow, why do I have to run everything? I don't have to be involved in every single little thing that might go wrong. I just felt like I had to fix everything and put every fire out. So like that, like I was able to breathe, just thinking, I don't have to do that. Why am I doing that?
Kind of an exciting feeling, right? To have that different perspective, like you're willing to look at it differently and see a possibility for yourself to just stay focused on what Leah's doing. So what about the separate beds? What's happening there?
Well, my husband has gotten a CPAP mask, but the problem is it leaks and it's loud. So we still have issues within the bed, but he's like sweeter about it. He's like, well, I'm trying. He goes, I'm trying not to move. I know when I move at night, like the mask gets loud and it leaks. And, he's like, I tried to adjust it. And I can't tell him, hey, go get a new one. Like, because even if I've said that to him many times and he's never gone and done it. So I've tried to be more understanding and realize it's not something that he's doing on purpose. The last like 2 nights, I have tried sleeping next to him. So he would come in bed and he would lay next to me. And the CPAP mask was kind of a little loud and I couldn't sleep. And then I would go out on the couch. But I feel like I'm not as angry as I used to be about it. I think I've kind of let that go. If he really does want me to stay in the bed, he will get the mask fixed. He was just so cute about it because last night he said to me, he's like, I wanted you to stay in the bed. And he goes, I tried not to move because I didn't want the mask to be loud. And, and then I heard you get up and then I felt bad. He's like, I'm just really sorry. It was very sweet. So I feel like it's an issue. It's a work in progress. Like, I don't think it's anything that's easily fixed, but I do feel like the intimacy is much better. Like, I don't feel resentful to him right now. Like, where I feel like, it's, I don't want to be touched by you because I'm just so irritated with the things he said to me or things that have happened. And so as far as like me feeling angry being in the same bed with him or being mad because he's not getting his CPAP fixed, I'm realizing that it is difficult for him and he's trying to like make it a little bit better. And if he has a day off, like he'll be off tomorrow. So probably he'll be like, you sleep in the bed and I'll go sleep on the couch. Like, he's just very sweet about it. So I think we'll get there. I think we'll get the issue fixed. Whether it's a new machine or a new mask, I don't know, but he's definitely open to talking about it.
Yeah. It sounds like some of the resentment you had has really melted away. Yeah.
I feel like that from very early on, just his response, like just seeing how sweet he is. And then the whole, I remember, I read so many things. I think it might be from your book talking about finding evidence. Like I started collecting evidence. Okay. Does he really love me? Does he really want to spend time with me? And I would, find little things like he would text me and say, and wish me a good day. Or he'd be like, hey, like we both had a hard day. Why don't we just get takeout? And I have a cat in my house, which he doesn't like cats. But I told him, I said, when I look at Sunny, when I look at our cat, I know that you love me because we never would have had a cat because you are not a cat lover, but he's very sweet to Sunny. He's not mean to him at all. He pets him and, talks to him and all that. He would, someone who didn't love you wouldn't say, okay, you know what? I don't love cats, but that's okay. You can have a cat because I agree to this. He's just
You're right.
You're finding that little pieces of evidence, I think, looking for that instead of looking for the negative things that were going wrong. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm just so sick of that. I don't like the way he says that to me and it's so rude. Or, I think when you spend time looking for the negative things, that's all you're going to find. Yeah. Switch and start looking for the positive things. You're going to find more and more. Hopefully you will. And I think that was the first, giving me just laying my armor down and saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry for my part. And I think that really stuck with him. And just the finding the evidence, just small things, and, it was funny. I think he started realizing within a couple of days that I was a little different because he loves antique things. And if it was up to him, my whole house would be full of all these little antique things that he collects. So he had said to me, he showed me a picture and he said, I have these like cans and I want to kind of stack them. And what do you think if I did that? And I thought, okay. So the whole thing about whatever you think, I thought, okay, is it really important? Do I really care that he stacks a couple of cans in the corner of my living room? No, I have to let that. So I said, whatever you think. He's like, do you like it? That's whatever you think. It's cool, whatever. And he went down in the basement and got his like antique cans or whatever they were. And he like stacked them in the corner and he took a picture of it. He put it on his Facebook page. It was like, oh, look, like showing his latest like thing he wanted to show off. It was just so funny. He was like, I better just see what I can put around the house. Like, what else is she going to say? Okay, you do, I haven't told him a lot about what I'm doing, but I did say that I talked with him about the marriage being two sides of the street. And I said, I could spend all my time looking at your side and pointing out all the things that have to be changed. I said, or I can turn around and look at my side and take care of the things that I can change. So I think that really resonated with him, and he's like, okay, and honestly, maybe like 11 days in, I started getting a little more resentful again. Like some of that things, I think it's easy for like some of those old feelings to kind of come back up again. So I sent him another apology. I said, I got really like cold to him. Like I didn't want to talk to him. I was feeling very like down, and I was just, he knew I was kind of not, I didn't want to talk to him. And I apologized and said, look, I'm just trying to, I said, I think there's a part of me that doesn't feel like I deserve all of these good things from you. And I said, I'm trying to work on that. And I said, I realize you do a lot of things in this family. You work so hard, and I realize you do that for us. And I'm just trying to make things better. And he said, you're fine. He goes, you always go above and beyond for me and the kids. Like another text like that with vulnerability. And he just responded so beautifully. And I thought, okay, just let some of that resentment go away again. And
so it sounds like your go-to, when you're feeling resentful, you actually choose apologizing yourself as a way to bring back the peace and keep your side of the street clean. And then he responds to that beautifully.
Yeah, because I feel like, whatever I might view him doing, I know I'm doing the same. And I think I just kind of had to come to that realization that it's not all just him. And I've heard, I've talked to different women who struggle in their own marriages. And I kind of hear how they're just it's him. He did this. He said this. He did that. If he would only do this. And I just tell him what I think. And I just tell him this is the way it's supposed to be. But neither of them are happy in their marriages. And I thought that's the advice I always would follow. Like, just tell him that, hey, stop bothering the food. When I'm cooking on the stove, I don't need you double checking things and making sure it's not burning. And I don't need you to tell me where to park. And I would tell him those things. But it just kind of created this divide between us. And I feel like we both had walls up, and I was very afraid to be vulnerable, I think, because of his humor, I didn't want like a jab coming at me. So I would put up a wall, and I would put on these walls of armor. We just kept getting farther and farther apart. And the whole thing with the CPAP issue and the snoring was just it just kind of kept drawing the divide. And then it was more excuses I had. Well, he just doesn't care, and he doesn't want me to sleep next to him, and things like that. And just realizing I have to. There's two of us here, and it's not just him. And if I have to be the one to make the first move to save 19 years of marriage, then I'll do that. My kids deserve that, and I want them to have a cohesive family, but I don't want them to have parents that are always kind of at odds. And my son and my husband they kind of are like, they butt heads quite a lot. And I'm kind of using the same things I'm letting him handle the situation. Like if he needs me, I'll be like, well, I'll come in and what do you think? Or I try to hear him out. So I don't come in and pointing fingers saying, you shouldn't be saying this or don't do that. I don't do that anymore. And even with my own son, when he's frustrated, I'll say to him, I hear you. Just those simple little things like, I hear you, buddy. Like, and I don't have to say much. I just kind of listen. And I think that it's releasing, it's kind of, my resentment is so much lower. And I don't even think it's there anymore. And I think my kids it just seems happier at home. I feel like it's a happier mood. I think everybody's in a little bit of a better mood.
Who would think like 3 weeks later, right?
I never would have thought that I could dramatically change all this in 3 weeks. And I keep thinking, is this going to stick? Is this going to, so I did sign up for the Ridiculous Happy Wife. I thought, you know what, this is important. It's my mental health. And I use money we have aside for our healthcare. And I signed up this month, and I've been listening to group coaching calls, and And it's a good thing for me, and I kind of, and I'm still, I haven't like spoken up in a group coaching call. I haven't said anything about what I think or whatever. I'm just listening. I think you get a lot out of just even listening to kind of, there is some kind of glimmer of like with like, when a woman might be talking about a struggle, you might see a little piece of what's happening with you in that. So I think that's been really helpful. So I'm just trying to step by step. I'm just trying baby steps. I'm not saying that nothing can be fixed overnight, but I think we're on the right path. I really do. And I'm so grateful for the skills in all of it. Like it's a whole different vocabulary too. I'm learning. But I wasn't letting myself get bogged down in anything and not knowing anything. My goal was, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to find evidence that he loves me, and I'm just going to see where this gets me. And it's just, he's so sweet. Like he'll come over. We went to dinner and my son was with us and he was holding my hand and he patted my leg. And I even tried smiling at him. He looked at me last night and I just smiled at him and he like looked at me and he like grabbed my hand. It was just like really cute, like very like early on in our relationship,
Right. Romantic.
It's yeah. And I was like, that's so exciting. Like it makes me like smile. Like, I'm like, just those little things. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking, how many years have he's probably seen my annoyed face at him? And he's like, wow. And he comes in and, it was funny last night. I've been greeting him at the door. Like, and he comes in. I'm like, hey, how was your day? To talk to him and smile at him. And last night I was doing something at the kitchen table with my son and my husband comes in. And like I said, it's only been a couple of weeks. And he's like, hey, is anyone going to say hello to me? Like he's going, I really like when people like greet and say hello to me at the door,
He's already retrained now to expect the happy Leah at the door.
Yeah. He's like, where's her smiling face? Like, and,
what about physical intimacy? You had written that he wasn't very interested in sex.
Actually, truly, a lot of that I think came from me because honestly, if you would ask me, neither was I. I did go to my doctor actually because I was on medication and we talked about the medication I was on could affect libido. And so I had gone off of that. Now that I've been off of this medication now for probably 2 months, I guess. But just him being sweet to me, I'm like, our physical intimacy is like it's more spontaneous. And I've taken like a mental health day from work just to be home with him because he was off. And, we weren't just off doing our own separate things. Like we wanted to be together. And that's so exciting. And he's happier. He's like, I can hear it in his voice, because the physical intimacy is back. He's just kind of floating around the house and he's so happy with the kids. And I just feel like he's excited because I feel like this is how we were in the very beginning. And I feel like it's been so many years of struggle and challenge. And our marriage really has taken a hit. And I have to be, honest about that. And it's just so beautiful to have that back again. Like we'll be married 20 years, coming this June. And it's like that the beginning sparks in that are coming back again. It's so exciting.
So exciting. It really is. Yeah.
I do think it's important to take care of the medical part of it, but I do think a lot of the changes that I'm doing and the skills, that has a huge change in that, So even if we're not sleeping in the same bed, we still are carving time to be just together, the two of us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would think after 20 years, you'd be feeling like you're on another honeymoon again, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of how it sounds.
It's beautiful. It's
and
really beautiful.
I give you all the credit for creating that, right? Because you have made these changes and really changed the culture in your home to where he is looking for you to smile at him when he comes home from work and wants to spend the day with you, take off work and spend the day with you, which I think sounds really fun. So what is your tip for a woman who is where you were feeling like he just never apologizes and he's saying things that are hurtful and saying he was just kidding. And she wants to create what you've created, where there's this hand holding and just kind of smiling and googly eyes at each other. What should she do?
I think it would be just allow yourself to be vulnerable again. And kind of what happens, I think, in moments when, when your husband uses sarcastic remark, and it can kind of erode. I think what it erodes at your confidence, it erodes at your intimacy. I think you can kind of just really look at a different point of view and say, okay, I've had a part in this, and not constantly like, yes, you can make a list of all the things, like you can put a whole list of blame against your husband. But if you really want to make a change, I think we need to kind of look at ourselves, be accountable for what we are, our part in what's going wrong, and just being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for what I've done. And just seeing how he responds. I hope it would be just as easy as that for someone, but I don't think it's always easy to put those walls down, because you may have spent many years building up those walls and that armor around your heart, and you just don't want to be hurt. I just thought, what do I have to lose? This is very different from anything I've ever tried to do. I've tried to be direct. I've tried, the cold shoulder treatment. I've tried all of that, and it doesn't work. It just makes me more frustrated and angry. So I would just say, don't be afraid to be the first one to apologize, and then just try that experiment and see, how does he respond to that? And I was a little more chicken, so I did it through a text.
Yeah.
I think even a text or a note, or even if you could do it in person, would be fine. But I think sometimes it's hard when we have teenagers in the house, and they're always around, and they're always hearing what we're doing.
Yes.
So I thought it was a little more privacy.
Yeah.
Then he can kind of save that, and he reads my text. Like, oh, look at she,
That's
she was
true.
sorry for what she said, So hopefully, like I said, it's his little thing. Like, what's not to like? You are a strong and beautiful wife and mom. That's my screen. That's my on my lock screen, because I just need to look at that every day. That reminds me that I'm on the right path.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Do you think it's had an impact on your teenagers?
I think so. I think I haven't been hearing much arguing between my son and my husband. My son is 17, and he's a typical 17-year-old. However, with his muscle condition, he does need quite a lot of care. So, when it's a shower night, he doesn't really. The whole thing is we have to do it for him. We have to help him, and I think that's hard for a 17-year-old boy to come to terms with, that I need my parents to do these simple things for me. And I feel like it would come out he would just argue a lot with my husband. Like, you're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. And I think it was coming from a place of his own hurt and his own fear of his condition. And I think just because the stress level in our home is kind of coming down between John and I think the last time it was a shower night, that I didn't hear as much arguing, and I didn't get involved. I let him do the shower routine that he does. I style his hair. I blow dry his long hair. So I let John just do his part, and I didn't hear much arguing. I don't think I heard anything at all. Maybe just a little bit of something. But I'm seeing positive strides there. Like, I think my son would kind of say to my husband, I think he would reflect the things that I had said. So I think how the two of them were arguing, I would kind of see myself in my son. And so I'm hoping that over time, as I keep modeling, I'm not going to argue with my husband, or if there was something that maybe I saw that happen, like, or something I was worried about, like, I might say something to him about it. But for the most part, my husband is responsible for his own relationships with his children, and it's not my job to repair that. Reason why did that get in my head, that I felt that I had to fix it? I had to make sure they had great relationships. Like, what? Like, really? All it was doing was just wearing me down, and I was exhausted all the time, and I was stressed out, and I I started having issues with anxiety and panic attacks. And it's just, it really, the stress that builds up and the armor that you build up and the walls that you build, it just creates more and more stress and anxiety and worry. And I just was ready to put all that down. I was tired of it. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I'm only one person. And I think self-care, like really returning to that and taking care of things that make me happy has been huge. And I even in my phone, I write down what my 3 self-care things were each day. And so I remind myself what I'm doing. So if I'm kind of stuck, what do I want to, what could I do for myself today? I kind of can go back and see. You can't take care of everybody, I find. And I know that there's been a lot of families that I've met that had similar illnesses to mine, and a great majority are divorced. And I didn't want that to be our future, because I think it's hard enough dealing with the challenges that my son has. But then a divorce on top of that, I didn't want that. I didn't want that for anybody. And now that's not even something I would even think would happen,
Wow. Because you sound really empowered to to have the kind of marriage you want to have.
Because I can't control anything else. Like, I just feel like the only thing I have control over is me and what I do and my choices. And you just have to be honest with yourself. Like, you can blame your husband all you want, but I think sometimes if we kind of look at ourselves, we can kind of see we're kind of doing similar things.
I love your accountability. What would you say to Leah if you could go back and tell her what you know now from before?
Relax, please. Stop trying to control everybody and everything. I did say that one night too. My husband said something about my daughter. Did you know what your daughter said? Do you know what she said? He's like, and what are you going to do about it? I said, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. She's her own person. She makes her own decisions. And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, you're right. Yeah. I mean, he was just kind of joking around like he does. And it's true. I can't make her do anything. I can strongly suggest and I can model and I could, be there to listen. But really, at the end of the day, she's going to make her own decisions. And I can't control that. So I would say just worry about yourself. Don't be so stressed about everybody around you. People make their own decisions, their own choices, and it's okay. It's okay.
Well, I love that. I love that, Leah. And congratulations on being so courageous and humble and just willing to clean your side of the street with those apologies and really creating this hopeful, happy family, it sounds like, where some of the challenges you faced have really broken the family apart. Where what you've done is created what we all want, which is a second honeymoon 20 years in. So congratulations on that. And thank you for sharing this inspiring story with all of us today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity because things have really turned around for me and I can't ever see going back. I just keep learning more and I'm just really hopeful. I'm hopeful and I think things are going to continue to get better. I really do.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm glad we're on this journey together. So
thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Yeah. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week Award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the week. relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's got me shuddering this week is from a wonderful coach who knows that sending me worst relationship advice of the week is the same as sending me love. She sent the link to an article called Why Having Children is Bad for Your Marriage. And I'll let her explain why this is the winner. She writes, I can hear why it would be bad for marriage if you ain't got skills. And before I had the skills, I had definitely thought about not having any more children. But since I have found and implemented the intimacy skills, having children has just made the marriage even more amazing. And for that reason, the advice that having children is bad for your marriage is the worst advice I've heard all week, she writes. And then she says, this is really just my breakout to let you know that I just gave birth to a cute little precious baby boy. No words in the dictionary to thank you for being the cause of this baby coming into the world to parents who love each other so deeply and are so happily married. I definitely would have not wanted any more kids the way my marriage was going back in the bad old days. So here's a big shout out. Thank you so much for the worst relationship advice of the week. Contribution and mazel tov to you on the cute new addition to your family. I'm so happy for you. And it's great to hear that with the intimacy skills, having children just made your marriage even more amazing. Wow. That makes my day. So thanks for sending all that love and for the very, very worst relationship advice I have heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'm going to share 2 solutions when your husband hoards. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that when someone injures themselves at volleyball, I like to say, are you just doing this because you need some attention? Could you at least crawl off the court so we can finish the game?